February 19, 1945, 8:59 hours. Iwo Jima, Volcano Islands. The sea is steel gray. The sky hangs low and heavy with cordite smoke. Inside a Higgins boat pitching toward the black sand, a Marine grips his M1 Garand so tightly his knuckles bleach white beneath the grime. The diesel engine roars. Salt spray lashes faces already raw from days aboard troop transports. Ahead, the island rises like a broken tooth from the Pacific. Mount Suribachi smolders at the southern tip, a dark cone breathing ash. Then the naval bombardment stops. For 3 days, battleships from Task Force 58 have pounded the speck of sulfur and rock. 16-inch shells from USS Missouri and USS Idaho have torn at its ridges. Carrier aircraft have strafed and bombed until pilots reported nothing left alive. The Marines were told resistance would be shattered. Now there is only silence. The coxswain shouts. The ramp drops. Black volcanic sand swallows boots instantly. It is soft, choking, impossible to run through. The 4th and 5th Marine Divisions surge forward. Flamethrower teams, demolition men, radio men dragging spools of wire. You expect machine guns to rake the shoreline. You expect the whine of mortars. Nothing, only the hiss of surf and the grind of men struggling uphill. Somewhere beneath them, Lieutenant General Tadamaki Kurabayashi waits. Deep under Iwo Jima's crust, nearly 11 miles of tunnels snake through volcanic rock, reinforced bunkers, hidden artillery ports, interlocking fields of fire. Kurabayashi has forbidden the traditional bonsai charge. No wasteful beach defense. No dramatic last stands in the surf. He has ordered patience. Let them land. Let them crowd the sand. At 10:02 hours, the island opens its eyes. Mortars thump from unseen pits. Heavy machine guns erupt from slits carved into cliffs. Artillery zeroed in months before begins walking across the beach in precise, murderous increments. The sand becomes a killing field. Marines drop where they stand, bodies half buried instantly by explosions that kick up black fountains. Radio operators scream into handsets for naval gunfire support. Forward observers call coordinates through static and chaos. The smell hits next. Sulfur, burnt powder, blood. Suribachi fires enfilade into the landing zones. Every yard forward costs men. Tanks from a 4th Tank Battalion grind ash uselessly as shells hammer their flanks. Engineers try to blast pillboxes only to discover more guns behind them. You feel it now. This is not Tarawa. This is not Saipan. This island was never meant to be held at the waterline. It was built to bleed an invasion dry. Kurabayashi's strategy is simple and brutal. Inflict maximum casualties. Make America reconsider the price of stepping closer to the Japanese home islands. Iwo Jima sits halfway between the Marianas and Tokyo. Its airfields can intercept B-29 superfortresses bombing the mainland. If held long enough, it becomes a shield. If lost, it becomes a stepping stone. By noon, the beaches are gridlocked with wounded and wreckage. Navy corpsmen crawl through fire to drag men back toward makeshift aid stations. Seabees bulldoze lanes through chaos while shells burst around them. Still, the Japanese do not counterattack. They stay underground. They wait. On the slopes below Suribachi, Marines claw upward yard by yard. Flamethrowers belch liquid fire into cave mouths. But many tunnels run too deep. Grenades vanish into darkness and return as concussive blasts from side chambers. Every ridge taken reveals another. Every bunker destroyed uncovers 2 more. By dusk, the black sand is no longer black. And somewhere beneath the island, Kurabayashi studies reports delivered through tunnel runners, calculating casualties with cold precision. His fortress is working exactly as designed. But fortresses can become traps. February 20th, 1945, 23:40 hours, northern Iwo Jima. The island trembles again, not from naval shells this time, but from controlled detonations deep underground. In a command chamber carved beneath Kitano Point, Lieutenant General Tadamaki Kurabayashi kneels over a field map lit by a single lantern. The air smells of damp stone and sweat. Telephone lines snake along the tunnel walls. Runners crouch nearby, waiting for orders that will send them back into darkness. Above him, the Marines dig in for night. The 5th Marine Division holds a tenuous grip on the southern beaches. The 4th Division pushes inland, trying to split the island and isolate Mount Suribachi. Casualty lists grow by the hour. Stretchers move in steady lines toward makeshift aid stations near the shoreline. Naval surgeons operate beneath canvas lit by red lamps to preserve night vision. Suribachi does not celebrate. He reads the numbers carefully. Ammunition expenditures. Mortar tubes destroyed. Sections of tunnel collapsed by naval gunfire. His garrison began with roughly 21,000 soldiers and sailors, elements of the 109th Division, Naval Guard units, artillery detachments. Every man has been told there will be no relief, no evacuation, no surrender. He has rejected Tokyo's earlier assumptions that Iwo Jima could be defended at the shoreline, months before the invasion. He ordered his engineers to abandon beach fortifications and instead fortify the high ground, interlocking strong points, concealed artillery, hidden machine gun nests positioned to fire from flanks, and rear once the Americans advanced inland. It was tactically brilliant, but it carried a hidden flaw. By allowing the Marines to land with relatively light initial resistance, he ensured they could bring ashore overwhelming material. Within hours, Sherman tanks, half-tracks, 105mm howitzers, and mountains of ammunition were stacked across the sand. Naval gunfire spotters established reliable communications. Air support from carrier-based F-6F Hellcats and SB-2C Helldivers circled overhead by daylight. The Americans were not repulsed at the waterline. They were entrenched. On the surface, the battle mutates into something slow and suffocating. Marines of the 28th Regiment begin their drive toward Mount Suribachi. The volcanic ash shifts under every step, swallowing boots to the ankle. Snipers fire from hidden apertures no wider than a helmet. Every time a pillbox is silenced, another opens from a different angle. Flamethrower operators move forward in pairs. One man carrying the heavy fuel tank, the other shielding him with a Thompson submachine gun. When they ignite a bunker, fire pours into darkness and the screams echo through tunnels like wind through pipes. Still no bonsai charges. No mass counterattacks. Suribachi forbids them. He believes in attrition. Each American casualty is a strategic message to Washington. This is what the Japanese mainland will cost. Yet attrition cuts both ways. American naval gunfire intensifies with new precision. Spotter aircraft relay coordinates directly to battleships offshore. 16-inch shells collapse entire ridgelines. Cave entrances vanish beneath landslides. Communications lines snap under concussive force. Inside the tunnels, oxygen thins. Dust chokes men who have not seen daylight in days. Water supplies dwindle as storage cisterns rupture. Field hospitals operate in cramped chambers where the wounded lie shoulder to shoulder, waiting for morphine that may never come. Suribachi received a report. Suribachi's southern defenses are failing. Marines have reached the upper slopes. He closes his eyes briefly. Suribachi was never the true heart of his defense. The northern plateau holds the main gun positions, the artillery that can reach the beaches and airfields. But the mountain dominates morale. If it falls, the Americans gain observation over the island's southern half. At 10:20 hours on February 23rd, a small patrol from Easy Company, 2nd Battalion, 28 Marines, reaches the summit. They raise a small American flag. Cheers erupt from the beaches below. Suribachi hears about it minutes later through a field telephone. He does not panic. He shifts artillery to new angles, directing fire toward the expanding American perimeter. His underground network still functions, though damaged. His men continue to fight from concealed positions that the Marines struggle to locate. But something fundamental has changed. The island is no longer an unsinkable fortress projecting outward. It is a sealed chamber filling slowly with firepower. American engineers begin sealing tunnel entrances with explosives. Bulldozers push earth into openings. Flamethrowers pour burning fuel into ventilation shafts. The very network that protected the garrison becomes a maze with limited escape. Suribachi understands this danger. His decision to fight a static, underground defense has maximized American casualties. It has also surrendered maneuver. There is no open terrain left to retreat into, no reserves hidden beyond the horizon. He writes a message to Tokyo, reporting heavy losses inflicted and requesting reinforcement he knows will never arrive. The Imperial Navy cannot break the American blockade. The combined fleet is shattered after Leyte Gulf. The fortress holds, but it cannot move. Above ground, fresh Marine regiments rotate into the line. Artillery batteries pound northern strongpoints without pause. The Americans absorb the losses and keep advancing, yard by yard, bunker by bunker. Kuribayashi studies his remaining strength. He has achieved surprise, inflicted terror, slowed the timetable. Yet the enemy grows stronger every hour. And for the first time, beneath the volcanic rock, the general confronts a possibility he cannot calculate away. The island may not be a shield at all. It may be a tomb. March 1st, 1945, 6:10 hours, Motoyama Plateau, Iwo Jima. Dawn arrives without color. A gray haze hangs over the northern half of the island, thick with pulverized rock and cordite. The Marines of the 3rd Division have landed to reinforce the battered 4th and 5th. They move forward in staggered skirmish lines, rifles leveled, boots sinking into ash that feels like walking through flour mixed with glass. Ahead lies Motoyama Airfield No. 2, a scar of flattened earth surrounded by ridges honeycombed with Japanese defenses. There is no clear front line. A pillbox that appeared silent at midnight may erupt at sunrise. A cave bypassed yesterday may open behind advancing squads today. Kuribayashi's defensive grid is designed for depth, not spectacle. Each strong point supports another. Kill zones overlap with mathematical precision. A Marine squad leader signals halt. He has spotted what looks like a shallow depression ahead. It could be a shell crater. It could be a concealed firing pit. He motions to a bar gunner cover while a demolition man crawls forward with satchel charge. The ground explodes before he reaches it. Hidden artillery, pre-sighted weeks earlier, walks shells across the plateau. Shrapnel sighs through open terrain. Men dive into the ash, pressing faces into sulfur-stained grit. Corpsmen scramble forward. Red crosses stark against soot-darkened dungarees. By now, American tactics have adapted. Tanks no longer advance alone. Infantry moves in close coordination, covering blind spots with rifle fire, while engineers blast apertures with TNT. Flamethrower teams are attached to nearly every platoon. When a bunker is located, suppressive fire pins it while liquid flame pours through embrasures. The smell lingers long after the firing stops. Still, the Japanese do not break. Inside the tunnels beneath Motoyama, Kuribayashi's officers report dwindling ammunition. Mortar stocks are nearly exhausted in several sectors. Water is rationed to a few mouthfuls per day. Many soldiers have been underground for over 10 days, emerging only to fire and withdraw through hidden shafts. Yet, discipline holds. The general's earlier decision to forbid suicidal charges has preserved manpower. Instead of wasting lives in dramatic attacks, his men fight from prepared positions, withdrawing through internal corridors when overrun. It forces the Marines to destroy each node individually. No sweeping maneuver can collapse the line. But the Americans have something equally relentless. Logistics. On the beaches, supply dumps stretch for acres. Ammunition crates are stacked in neat pyramids. Replacement battalions disembark daily. Naval gunfire remains on call at all hours. When a ridge proves stubborn, forward observers call in battleship salvos that flatten entire sectors. The Japanese cannot replace a single shell. On March 3rd, Marines secure Airfield No. 2 after days of brutal close combat. Engineers immediately begin repairing runways under intermittent sniper fire. Within hours, damage B, 29 superfortresses returning from raids over Tokyo divert to the newly captured strip for emergency landings. The strategic picture sharpens. Iwo Jima is no longer merely denying the enemy an outpost. It is becoming a lifeline for American bombers and a staging ground for P-51 Mustang escorts that can now accompany raids all the way to the Japanese mainland. Kuribayashi understands this transformation. His fortress was intended to shield Japan's inner defense perimeter. Instead, by allowing the Americans to entrench and capture the airfields intact enough for rapid repair, he has accelerated their ability to strike the homeland. Above ground, resistance intensifies around Hill 382. quickly nicknamed the meat grinder by the Marines. Machine guns fire from positions invisible until they flash. Mortars drop with terrifying accuracy. Progress is measured in yards gained at the cost of platoons shattered. A Marine lieutenant checks his roster at dusk. Half the names are crossed out. Replacements arrive who have never fired a shot in combat. They step into foxholes, still warm from the dead. On the Japanese side, tunnel sections collapse under constant bombardment. Communication lines are reduced to runners who navigate darkness by memory. Medical supplies vanish. Wounded men are left with only bandages and whispered apologies. Attrition was meant to be America's burden. Now it is shared. Suribachi drafts a final directive to his commanders. Continue resistance. Conserve ammunition. Prepare for decisive action if positions become untenable. There will be no surrender. The Marines sense a shift. The enemy's fire remains deadly, but gaps appear between barges. Some bunkers fall silent and stay silent. Others explode from within as demolition charges trigger hidden stockpiles. The plateau that was once a fortress begins to resemble a quarry blasted apart by industrial force. And still, at the northern tip of Iwo Jima, thousands of Japanese soldiers remain entrenched, their commander calculating one last move, a move he had sworn to avoid. March 8, 1945, 21:15 hours, northern Iwo Jima. Night on Iwo Jima does not bring silence. It brings listening. Marines lie flat in shallow foxholes scraped into volcanic ash, rifles resting across sandbags that leak black dust with every movement. The wind carries sulfur from shattered vents, mixing with the copper scent of dried blood. Somewhere ahead, in ground that looks empty under starlight, thousands of Japanese soldiers remain alive beneath the earth. A flare arcs upward. For a moment the battlefield turns white, shadows snapping into sharp relief. Broken ridgelines resemble the spine of some ancient animal picked clean. Burned-out Shermans sit half-buried like rusted monuments. When the flare dies, darkness folds back in. Then comes a sound, a scraping, a muffled thud. Japanese infiltration teams emerge from concealed shafts between American lines. They move low, wearing split-toe boots wrapped in cloth to mute sound. Armed with Arisaka rifles, satchel charges, and grenades, they probe for artillery batteries, command posts, and medical stations. Suribachi has authorized limited night raids, not reckless bonsai charges. Precision disruption. A sentry hears gravel shift and squeezes a trigger. The night detonates. Tracers streak red across blackness. Grenades explode in tight bursts. Within seconds, both sides vanish again into shadow, leaving bodies tangled in wire. By now, the American perimeter stretches across most of the island's northern plateau. Hill 362A and Hill 362B have become charred battlegrounds fought over multiple times a day. The 3rd Marine Division pushes forward, supported by 155mm long-tom artillery emplaced near the captured airfields. Each shell lands with concussive force that shakes teeth in their sockets. Suribachi's underground network is fracturing. Naval gunfire and aerial bombardment have collapsed key junctions. Some units are isolated entirely, cut off from centralized command. Telephone lines are severed beyond repair. Communication relies on runners who crawl through partially blocked tunnels, risking suffocation or sudden cave-ins. Water is nearly gone. Rice rations have been reduced to handfuls. Ammunition is counted cartridge by cartridge. Soldiers strip magazines from the dead and redistribute rounds. The general receives casualty reports that are now estimates rather than numbers. Entire companies have ceased responding, yet surrender is never discussed. Suribachi gathers his remaining senior officers in a reinforced chamber near Katano Point. A single electric bulb flickers from a generator that sputters unpredictably. The map on the wall no longer reflects reality. American units have penetrated deeper than anticipated. Strong points once considered mutually supporting are now isolated pockets. He acknowledges what his staff already knows. The strategy of attritional defense has inflicted staggering losses on the Marines, but the Americans continue to land replacements, continue to repair airstrips, continue to bring overwhelming firepower to bear. The fortress has done its damage. It has not stopped the invasion. Above ground, U.S. engineers methodically sealed tunnel entrances using demolition charges and bulldozers. Flamethrowers inject burning fuel into ventilation shafts. White phosphorus grenades roll into crevices that once concealed machine guns. Every captured ridge becomes a platform for new artillery positions aimed north. The Marines advance using a brutal routine. Identify a bunker. Suppress it with rifle and bar fire. Bring up a tank to blast the aperture. Send in engineers with explosives. Confirm destruction. Move forward 10 yards. Repeat, 10 yards at a time. The cost is visible in the eyes of junior officers whose platoons have been reduced by half. Corpsmen work without pause, morphine syringes dangling from empty pouches. Chaplains move between foxholes, offering quiet words that disappear into artillery thunder. On March 9th, American forces sever the island completely, reaching the northeastern coast. The remaining Japanese defenders are compressed into a shrinking arc of ravines and shattered concrete. Kuribayashi's men are now fighting with their backs to the sea. He dictates a final message to Imperial headquarters. It is formal, restrained, devoid of complaint. He reports that his troops have fought with honor and inflicted heavy casualties. He states his intention to continue resistance as long as possible. There is no expectation of rescue. Above him, Marine artillery begins a sustained bombardment unlike anything earlier in the battle. Guns fire in coordinated waves, overlapping patterns designed to collapse remaining cave complexes. The earth convulses continuously. Inside the tunnels, lamps shatter. Dust fills lungs already weakened by days without clean air. Some Japanese soldiers prepare for what they were once forbidden to attempt. Not chaotic charges, but coordinated final assaults intended to disrupt American lines before the inevitable end. The general weighs this decision carefully. His original plan rejected suicide tactics as wasteful, but the strategic purpose of the island has already shifted. Iwo Jima is effectively lost. What remains is honor and the possibility of one last blow that will echo beyond this blackened rock. Above ground, Marines sense something building. The enemy's fire has thinned, yet movement increases at night. Patrols report fresh footprints near artillery positions. Wire is cut in places previously secured. The island feels like a lung drawing breath before a final exhale. And somewhere beneath the shattered plateau, Kuribayashi prepares to unleash the very tactic he once condemned. March 25, 1945, 3:12 hours, near Airfield No. 2, Iwo Jima. The darkness feels different tonight. For weeks, the island has grown under artillery and naval gunfire, but now there's a pause, thin and unnatural. Marines of the 5th Pioneer Battalion sleep in shallow foxholes near the captured runway, some clean rifles by touch. Others stare upward at a sky barely visible through drifting smoke. Then the ground opens. From concealed tunnel exits north of the airfield, hundreds of Japanese soldiers surge forward in coordinated assault groups. Not a reckless wave, not a screaming mob. They move with structure, officers guiding squads toward specific targets. Artillery batteries, command posts, supply dumps. Kuribayashi has committed his final reserve. Bugles do not sound. There is no theatrical charge. Instead, the attack unfolds in disciplined silence until the first grenades detonate among sleeping Marines. The night explodes. Arisaka rifles crack at close range. Type 96 light machine gun spit bursts into tents and sandbag positions. Japanese soldiers armed with satchel charges dive toward parked aircraft and ammunition stacks. Within seconds, the airfield becomes a maze of muzzle flashes and shouting. You are awake before you understand why. A Marine corporal rolls from his blanket as a grenade detonates beside him, ears ringing, vision blurred. He grabs his M1 and fires toward a shadow that resolves into a charging figure. The distance is less than 10 yards. Hand-to-hand combat spreads across the perimeter. Entrenching tools become weapons. Pistols fire until slides lock empty. Corpsmen drag wounded men only to pick up rifles themselves when attackers close in. The Japanese strike achieves immediate shock. Several artillery pieces are overrun. A fuel dump ignites, sending a column of fire into the sky that illuminates the battlefield in flickering orange. For a moment, it appears the northern sector might collapse. But American depth absorbs a blow. Reserve companies respond within minutes, guided by flares and shouted coordinates. Browning machine guns establish interlocking fields of fire across open ground. Tanks pivot their turrets and fire canister rounds into advancing clusters. Naval ships offshore, alerted by signal lamps, begin firing star shells that turn night into harsh daylight. The Japanese have nowhere to withdraw. Kuribayashi's decision is deliberate. He understands this assault will not retake the island. Its purpose is symbolic and tactical: to inflict maximum casualties in one concentrated stroke, to prove that the garrison remains lethal to the last. For hours, fighting surges back and forth across the airfield. Japanese soldiers infiltrate foxholes and are expelled at bayonet point. Marines counterattack in small groups, clearing trenches with grenades. By dawn, the scale of the assault becomes clear. Nearly 300 Japanese soldiers have penetrated deep into American lines. Many fight until ammunition is exhausted, then continue with blades or bare hands. Marine losses mount rapidly. More than 100 Americans are killed in the sudden onslaught, hundreds more wounded. It is the deadliest single Japanese attack of the entire campaign. But as sunlight spreads across Iwo Jima, resistance thins. Bodies lie scattered across the runway, uniforms indistinguishable beneath soot and blood. Isolated pockets of Japanese soldiers make final stands in shell craters and shattered revetments. By mid-morning, organized resistance collapses. Kuribayashi does not survive the day. Accounts differ on the exact moment of his death. Some believe he led elements of the final assault personally. Others suggest he withdrew to a command chamber and committed ritual suicide when defeat became undeniable. His body is never conclusively identified. What remains certain is this: his fortress has fallen silent. American patrols sweep the northern ravines methodically over the next several days, eliminating isolated holdouts. On March 26, 1945, the island is officially declared secure. The cost is staggering. Nearly 7,000 Americans killed, over 19,000 wounded. Of the approximately 21,000 Japanese defenders, only a few hundred are taken prisoner. The rest lie beneath volcanic rock or sealed inside collapsed tunnels. Iwo Jima becomes the only major Pacific battle where American casualties exceed those of the defenders. The attritional strategy achieved its bloody arithmetic. Yet strategically, the outcome is irreversible. Within days, 29 superfortresses begin using the captured airfields as emergency landing sites. In the months that follow, more than 2,000 bombers divert safely to Iwo Jima, saving thousands of aircrew lives. 51 Mustang fighters escort raids over Tokyo from these runways, tightening the noose around Japan's homeland. Kuribayashi intended to shield the empire by turning the island into an immovable bastion. Instead, by choosing to fight underground and allowing the Americans to establish a foothold, he created a fixed battlefield where American industrial power could grind relentlessly forward. The Unsinkable fortress became a stepping stone, and in the quiet after the last shots fade, Iwo Jima stands as a blackened reminder that even the most disciplined defense can become a prison when there is nowhere left to maneuver. March 27, 1945, 14:30 hours, Iwo Jima Airfield No. 1. The guns are silent now. A warm wind drifts across the runway, lifting fine black ash into the air like smoke that refuses to fade. Seabees operate graders and bulldozers where, only days before, men fought at arm's length. The metallic clatter of construction replaces artillery thunder. War has shifted from killing to calculation. A damaged B-29 superfortress appears over the horizon, limping south from a bombing raid over Tokyo. One engine trails smoke. The pilot lowers flaps carefully, lining up with a newly repaired strip. Marines pause to watch. The bomber touches down hard but intact, tires screaming against volcanic grit. Inside, exhausted airmen exhale. This is why Iwo Jima mattered. In the weeks that follow, more superfortresses divert here after sustaining flak damage or fuel shortages. Without this island, many would have been forced to ditch in the Pacific. Each landing represents crews spared from drowning or capture. Strategically, the island shortens response time extends fighter escort range, and strengthens a relentless air campaign against Japan's industrial heart. Yet the cost remains visible everywhere. Graves registration units move carefully across the battlefield, marking remains with numbered stakes. Chaplains conduct quiet services over temporary cemeteries carved into ash. The smell of burned fuel lingers, mixed with something heavier that no wind can quite erase. Marine units rotate off the island in phases. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th Divisions leave behind thousands of casualties. Veterans board transports in silence, uniforms stiff with salt and dust. Many stare back at the shrinking silhouette of Mount Suribachi without expression. You can see the question in their eyes. Was it worth it? Military planners argue yes. Iwo Jima's airfields provide emergency landing capacity for B-29 raids and staging ground for P-51 Mustang escorts. They reduce bomber losses and increase sortie efficiency. The island also removes a Japanese early warning radar site that had tracked American aircraft approaching the mainland. Operationally, it tightens the vice. But analysis in Washington also studies casualty figures closely. Nearly 7,000 Americans killed, over 19,000 wounded. The Japanese garrison almost annihilated. If this is the cost of a small volcanic island only 8 square miles in size, what would invasion of Kyushu or Honshu demand? The arithmetic is sobering. Iwo Jima becomes a grim preview of Operation Downfall, the planned invasion of Japan. Intelligence officers review Kuribayashi's defensive network and recognize a pattern likely to be repeated on the home islands. Underground fortifications, attritional resistance, civilians mobilized for defense. The fortress strategy failed tactically here, but its lethality is undeniable. American commanders understand something critical. Industrial superiority and logistical depth guarantee eventual victory in fixed battles. But every mile toward Tokyo may require similar sacrifice. On Iwo Jima itself, isolated Japanese holdouts continue emerging for weeks. Some survive in sealed tunnels, unaware the battle has ended. Patrols flush them out carefully, offering surrender through interpreters when possible. A handful accept, most do not. The island remains dangerous long after official declarations of security. Engineers detonate unexploded ordnance. Demolition teams collapse remaining tunnel complexes. Gradually, the landscape transforms from battlefield to forward operating base. Radar installations rise where pillboxes once stood. Fuel depots replace cratered strongpoints. Mount Suribachi, scarred but standing, overlooks it all. The image of Marines raising the flag days earlier circulates widely in American newspapers, captured by Associated Press photographer Joe Rosenthal. It becomes a symbol of endurance and triumph. Yet beneath that symbol lies a harsher truth. The island was never impregnable, only prepared. And preparation cannot compensate for strategic isolation. Kuribayashi's central miscalculation was not tactical incompetence. His defense was methodical, adaptive, and devastating. The flaw lay in strategic immobility. By choosing to transform Iwo Jima into a static fortress rather than a flexible delaying position with avenues for maneuver or withdrawal, he ensured that once surrounded, his force would be consumed entirely. An unsinkable fortress cannot retreat. In the months after the battle, casualty reports and operational analyses circulate through Allied headquarters. The lessons are stark. Underground networks demand overwhelming firepower and close-quarters assault tactics. Attrition can delay but not reverse material imbalance. And most of all, islands are finite. Once encircled, they become arenas rather than shields. As spring turns to summer 1945, B-29 raids intensify. Tokyo burns. Osaka burns. Industrial centers across the Japanese mainland face systematic destruction. Iwo Jima serves as a critical node in that expanding air offensive. The island that was meant to protect the empire now accelerates its vulnerability. Marines who survive carry memories that will never fade. The smell of sulfur, the sound of muffled gunfire from beneath their feet, the sight of comrades disappearing into black sand. Iwo Jima stands quiet at last, but its echo shapes every decision that follows. April 10, 1945, 9 o'clock hours, Pearl Harbor, Pacific Fleet Headquarters. Maps cover the walls. Red pins mark Iwo Jima. Blue arrows point north toward Okinawa. Then beyond to Kyushu and Honshu, admirals and generals study the casualty tables from the recent battle in silence. The numbers are no longer abstract. They represent divisions hollowed out in less than 5 weeks. Iwo Jima has ended. Okinawa has already begun. Reports from the Ryukyu Islands echo familiar language. Fortified ridges, cave systems, artillery hidden in reverse slopes. Japanese defenders again refuse suicidal beach resistance. They absorb the landing, then strike from prepared depth. The pattern is unmistakable. Iwo Jima was not an anomaly. It was rehearsal. In Washington, planners refine Operation Downfall, the projected invasion of the Japanese home islands. Phase 1, Operation Olympic, targets southern Kyushu. Phase 2, Operation Coronet, envisions a massive assault near Tokyo. Intelligence estimates vary wildly, but conservative projections predict hundreds of thousands of American casualties. Some forecasts climb higher. The lesson from Iwo Jima weighs heavily. An island only 8 square miles required weeks of relentless bombardment and close-quarters assault. Multiply that resistance across the mountainous terrain of Japan itself, defended by millions of soldiers and mobilized civilians, and the scale becomes staggering. Strategists examine Kuribayashi's defense with clinical attention. His tunnel network maximized survivability under bombardment. His refusal to waste manpower in premature charges prolonged combat. His integration of artillery, mortars, and machine guns created overlapping kill zones that punished frontal advances. Yet his position was fixed. Once American naval and air superiority isolated Iwo Jima, no reinforcement was possible. The garrison fought alone, consuming finite supplies. Attrition became inevitable. The conclusion is brutal but clear. Any Japanese commander defending the home island will face similar isolation once Allied forces secure sea and air dominance. But unlike Iwo Jima, the mainland offers depth, mountain ranges, urban sprawl, endless interior lines. A fortress on Japan proper would not be 8 square miles. It would be a nation. Meanwhile, Iwo Jima's operational value continues to expand. By mid-April, dozens of P-51 Mustang fighters are permanently based on the island, escorting B-29 formations deep into Japanese airspace. Emergency landings occur weekly. Damaged bombers limp onto volcanic runways. Crews stepping out alive would otherwise have vanished into the Pacific. Each safe landing reinforces a strategic return on investment. But among veterans, the debate is quieter and more personal. Letters home describe the battle in fragments. Some speak of heroism. Others mention only exhaustion. Few attempt to explain the tunnels, the sense of fighting an enemy who seemed to live beneath your boots. Psychological aftershocks ripple outward. Military psychiatrists note increasing cases of what is then called combat fatigue. Men who survived Iwo Jima display symptoms that words barely capture. Sudden silence, restless nights, flashes of memory triggered by harmless sounds. The island lingers in their minds as vividly as it does in official archives. As April progresses, news from Okinawa grows darker. Kamikaze attacks intensify against the U.S. fleet. Ground resistance mirrors the subterranean tenacity first fully realized on Iwo Jima. Casualty lists lengthen again. Decision-makers confront a narrowing corridor of options. Continue conventional bombing and blockade. Launch invasion at staggering cost. Seek alternative means to compel surrender. Iwo Jima sits at the center of this calculus. Its capture proves that no fortress is immune to sustained assault backed by industrial power. It also demonstrates the human cost of dismantling such fortresses one bunker at a time. In quiet briefings, analysts present a sobering projection. If every Japanese island is defended with the same discipline shown by Kuribayashi's garrison, the road to Tokyo will be paved in divisions. The Pacific War is approaching its final chapter, but its conclusion remains uncertain. On Iwo Jima itself, construction crews continue expanding facilities. Radar stations scan the horizon. Fuel depots grow larger. The island hums with aircraft engines instead of artillery. What was once a killing ground now functions as a forward platform aimed directly at Japan's heart. The transformation is complete. The unsinkable fortress has not only fallen, it has been repurposed, and as planners trace invasion arrows across maps and rooms far from volcanic ash, one truth stands unchallenged. If Iwo Jima demanded this much blood, the mainland may demand far more. August 6, 1945, 8:15 hours, Hiroshima, Japan. A single aircraft crosses a clear morning sky. Far to the south, on a small volcanic island in the Pacific, radar operators track routine air traffic patterns. Iwo Jima hums with engines and logistics, its runways carved from ash now fully integrated into the air war against Japan. Few stationed there understand how directly the battle they survived has shaped this moment. At 8:15, a blinding flash rewrites the future. The atomic bomb detonates over Hiroshima, in Washington and Tokyo alike. Calculations that began on islands like Iwo Jima reached their terrible conclusion. The decision to use atomic weapons did not emerge in isolation. It evolved through months of attritional combat across the Pacific. Tarawa, Saipan, Peleliu, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. Each battle demonstrated the same pattern. Determined Japanese resistance, fortified depth, staggering casualties on both sides. Iwo Jima stood as one of the clearest warnings. American commanders had secured victory through overwhelming firepower and relentless assault, yet at extraordinary cost. Nearly 7,000 Americans killed on a patch of land smaller than Manhattan. If such losses were sustained on Kyushu or Honshu, invasion projections suggested numbers that would dwarf anything yet endured. Planners did not forget the tunnels. They did not forget the final coordinated assault on March 25th. They did not forget how a disciplined, isolated garrison, nearly 20,000 strong, fought to virtual extinction. The lesson was stark. If the Japanese military defended the home islands with similar resolve, invasion would become a prolonged bloodletting measured in hundreds of thousands of lives. On August 9th, a second atomic bomb falls on Nagasaki. Within days, Emperor Hirohito addresses his nation by radio, announcing surrender. The war in the Pacific ends not with climactic amphibious landing on Japan's beaches, but with an unprecedented weapon that renders conventional fortress strategy obsolete. And Iwo Jima, the unsinkable fortress, becomes part of that chain of causation. Strategically, its capture accelerated bombing operations and tightened aerial control over Japan. Psychologically, it demonstrated both the ferocity of Japanese defense and the price of dismantling it. Operationally, it provided data, casualty ratios, time to secure objectives, resource expenditure per mile gained. War is studied in such terms. Yet for those who fought there, the analysis feels distant. Veterans remember the ash under their fingernails, the taste of sulfur in the air, the constant uncertainty of ground that could erupt without warning. They remember flamethrowers illuminating cave mouths and the silence that followed when tunnels collapsed. They remember comrades who did not leave the island. Japanese survivors, few in number, carried different memories. Weeks underground, rations dwindling, orders to hold until death. A general who forbade reckless sacrifice, only to sanction one final assault when defeat became certain. Kurabayashi's strategy was not irrational. It was calculated within the constraints he faced. He sought to transform geography into leverage, to convert a remote island into a barrier protecting the homeland. Tactically, he succeeded in maximizing American casualties. Strategically, he could not alter the imbalance of industry and supply. An unsinkable fortress implies permanence. Iwo Jima proved that permanence is an illusion when an adversary commands sea, sky, and production lines capable of sustaining relentless assault. Fixed defenses can delay. They can wound. They cannot ultimately withstand encirclement without reinforcement. In the years that follow, the island remains under American administration before being returned to Japan in 1968. Mount Suribachi stands quiet, no longer echoing with artillery. Memorials honor the fallen from both sides. The black sand no longer hides active gun ports, but the lesson endures in military academies and strategic doctrine. Mobility matters. Supply lines matter. Air superiority reshapes every calculation. And attrition, when embraced as a primary strategy, risks consuming the very force it seeks to empower. Japan called Iwo Jima an unsinkable fortress. It became the most expensive mistake not because its defenses were weak, but because they were static in a war defined by overwhelming mobility and production. On that 8-square-mile island, two nations tested endurance to its limit. One prevailed through scale and persistence. The other demonstrated courage and discipline that could not compensate for isolation. When the Pacific War ended weeks after bombs fell, the ash of Iwo Jima had already settled, but its shadow stretched all the way to the Japanese mainland.